Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Later, workplace expert Brian Simmons joins us. He'll be talking about new challenges for workers and companies trying to fill slots. There are job openings going unfilled and some feeling unfulfilled where they are spending their days at work. Brian Simmons with us a little later. But first, the drug problem in Kentucky is an awful scourge that is deadly and costly. It's ruining lives and ripping families and even communities apart. In Madison County, it's also the main reason why the jail is way overcrowded, as is the case in many Kentucky counties. Over the last couple of years in Madison County, there's been a dedicated effort to try to find a way to deal with the jail problem and the drug issue. The proposed solution was a healing center that would treat drug addiction and provide life and work skills so that people could re-enter society. But the considerable cost of that would have required a tax increase and possibly led to cuts in other services. The fire department and road maintenance were mentioned. Ultimately, the plan has been put on hold for now, and it is back to square one. Madison County Judge Executive Reagan Taylor is joining us to discuss where things stand and a problem that many counties can relate to. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it very much.
Good morning, Bill. Glad to be here.
Well, first, we're looking at some figures showing that your jail is, as of the time we're taping this interview, 182% capacity. I mean, you have nearly twice as many people as the jail was intended for. What is it that you wanted to do? And that really is a heck of a problem, right?
It is. You know, when we looked at this, when we put our jail task force together in 2015 and worked through 2016, it was a body. It was a committee sort of made up of taxpayers, of community leaders, business leaders, elected officials, public leaders. We really, when we looked at the numbers, we really didn't have a jail problem so much as we had a drug problem. You know, our jail problem, the root issue is drugs. 85, 90% of crimes in the jail were drug related. There's a 75% recidivism rate. And when we looked at and we projected what size jail we needed, you know, for the next 10, 15 years, is about 800 bed facility, which would have been about a $50 million expenditure. And so we sort of started looking at a solution instead of just kicking the can down the road with this healing center idea.
Was the determination made based on your study that just putting people in jail was not dealing with the
right? Yeah,
issue?
that's factual. You know, in all this, the factual information is that arresting and incarcerating is not working. Because if it was, you wouldn't have a 75% recidivism rate, which some would argue it's actually a little higher, or you would have 85% drug-related charges, you know, in jail.
So this healing center would have done what?
It would have diverted, our whole goal was divert people out of the court system into the healing center. My whole point was with it was when I looked at it was, hey, you already have them incarcerated, right? You already have them under your care. The judicial process requires that. If you're considered incarcerated in the state of Kentucky, you're under the responsibility of the jailer. And so what we were wanting to do is do a diversion program. That's where the P3 came into place. And we were going to partner with a private entity to actually operate this treatment healing center. And most of the treatments out there are created and designed around Medicaid reimbursement. And so what we wanted to do was invest in a solution. And so we wanted to add some phases to that, which is that educational life skills workforce component.
Judges, I'm sure, say go get some treatment, and there are some programs and options out there, but are they just not long-term enough for people to be able to leave their issue behind?
You know, I think so. I mean, I think that I think there's a collaboration of things. If we're going to even come close to competing with this war on drugs, there's got to be a collaboration of things to really compete. There's got to be intervention. You know, we as governments, we as community leaders, I really feel like that we have to invest in this problem. This isn't a county government problem. It's not a city problem. It's not a state or federal. Man, these are community problems. And I'm really trying to stay positive. You know, since all this came down, my wife's first cousin just overdosed over the weekend, and visitation is tomorrow. Some employees' sister-in-law just passed away in our county of an overdose. This drug epidemic doesn't discriminate. Man, it affects all walks of life. and we wanted to come up with a solution. I couldn't come to the taxpayers of Madison County and say, I need to build a $50 million jail, and something that's proven not to be working, to then in 15 years it be full and we're having to add on again. You know, circuit court indictments in Madison County have increased from 1996, 107, to 2015, 626, to 2017, 1,007.
Wow, yeah.
You know, so we do. You used a perfect word that I use all the time. Man, this is a scourge on society. And really my whole idea was to basically ask the taxpayers, let's invest in this problem together. Let's create a solution to where that we encourage and we invest into individuals' lives, where it is return on investment. Somebody going to work every day and not being a scourge on society, there's a return on investment because they become a taxpayer.
So, was it the cost that ultimately undid this? You had to request a tax increase. This would have been an insurance tax, and you still couldn't promise people that there might not have to be cuts in county government.
You know, our county financially is faced with a lot of challenges. You know, the drug epidemic is probably the number one, but as you well know, being a citizen of Madison County, the CSEP program, you got the D-mill process going on at the Bluegrass Army Depot. You know, when I look at projecting out 8 to 10 years down the road, we're short a lot of revenue that the CSEP program has helped with. Right now, we're giving our jail to make that budget balance $2.2 million. We're giving the Sheriff's Department $1.5 million. We're giving our road department $900,000. The new pensions, right, is going to be $1 million for our county in the next couple more years. I know it's phased in. This year was $250,000 extra. You know, when CSEP's gone, it's $1 million less in occupational tax that we're going to be getting in. The 800 megahertz radio system's estimated to cost the community, our county, about $3 million a year. So, you know, I'm foreseeing the future and what our shortfalls are as well. It doesn't count this jail, healing center, you know, how much we're spending in other counties.
What would this healing center have looked like? Would it, as I understand it, would have been like a 40-acre complex?
Yeah, some of that stuff hadn't been decided yet. Right. You know, a lot of this was just working up to that process, but we were to the point, in my opinion, that we had to make sure that we had the funding in place to move to the next step, which was really starting to really get down into the design. The rendering of it was sort of like a campus. You know, it was a phased facility. The group that we had partnered with to operate the facility, you know, they're already operating facilities in Kentucky. But again, they don't have that workforce phase, that educational phase, that life skills phase that we were wanting to invest in. And that's where I felt like it was the key. You know, I've heard a lot of moms and dads over the last 3.5 years tell me their story. And it seems like a lot of them have one thing in common is that their child or their loved one goes to rehab and they're doing well when they get out and they're doing good, but they can't find a job. And I've heard numerous stories after numerous stories of, well, they finally find a job here at this minimum wage place. And so it seems like it's not long after that they overdose.
And yet, on the other hand, there was testimony at your fiscal court meeting, or at least a comment from one of the magistrates, that there are places that are having to go through hundreds of applications to get people who are qualified to do the work, and can pass the drug screens, right?
And we were wanting to partner with our community leaders, our industry leaders. We wanted to partner with them and let them have buy-in, let them participate in like an internship program for these individuals to make sure that they're a good fit for what factory it might be or for what scope of work it might be.
Where do things stand right now?
Right now we're on hold. You know, I really want to stay positive. This is the biggest epidemic I think that's ever faced our state and our county. And I really want to stay positive, and I really was a little naive, I feel like, in making sure that the community was hearing us. I think I took it for granted because we are on Facebook, we are live streaming our fiscal court meetings. We are having special call meetings where we send out invitations. We are having budget workshops and sessions that are live to where anybody can hear them. And I thought people were hearing that, but obviously I was wrong. And I would encourage those that are yay-sayers in topics to voice their opinion. It seems like a lot of times all you hear from is the naysayers, and a small minority really dictates the future of our community or this state.
Do you fear a court order that could potentially come down that says you can't hold this many people in this facility, and you're going to have to start more transporting of inmates to other places?
I think right now that with we have inspections by Department of Corrections, and I don't think we're to that point to where that we could potentially I guess be court ordered to build or do whatever. We're already sending inmates outside the county to other places. We're trying to cut off about 360, 370, and it seems like right now that that is something that we can handle. We don't want to put our employees, our deputy jailers in harm's way. We want to try to have a good as facility as we possibly can under the terms.
Madison County Judge Executive Reagan Taylor is with us. We'll have some more questions for him. Brian Simmons, a human resources expert, will join us shortly on Kentucky Newsmakers. Stay right here. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. We're delighted you're with us this morning as we are visiting with Reagan Taylor, who is the County Judge Executive in Madison County, the leader there in a fast-growing county. You're approaching 100,000 residents over there, aren't you? I mean, it's in the 90s now.
We are. Actually, the new numbers that I just recently got was 91,216. That we're growing at about a 10% rate, where the state's just growing at like 2.6.
So a lot of people are coming there for something, right?
They are. That's exactly right.
And I know you're very proud to serve the county unopposed now for re-election. So does that give you a little freedom here in the next few weeks ahead that you can speak on these issues without the pressure of the election cycle?
Yeah, I've always, when I ran for office, I never wanted to be a leader that let the election dictate what I felt or what I thought was best for this community. And I think obviously with this presentation we had on July the 12th sort of showed that, in an election year when you do have opposition presenting or wanting to start a discussion of a tax increase, I've really put my heart and soul, and I'm honored to be serving my community, but I've really put my heart and soul into making our community be the best that it really truly can be, and not let politics really play into it. Some
of the fiscal court members, though, are opposed for re-election. Do you think that could have been a factor for them? I mean, knowing that, if they pass the tax increase, that could potentially be used against them this year.
It very well could have. I'm not going to sit here and speculate on that. My hope was that wasn't the case. Because to me, whether you're elected or not, or it's an election year or not, you should always do the right thing.
You have a unique situation in Madison County, as you said, 91,000 and growing fast, and most of the residents of the county live in the cities of Richmond or Berea.
It's 56%.
Okay.
Of that 91,000 lives inside the city limits of Richmond or Berea, 44% unincorporated.
So they, so people in the cities are paying city and county taxes, and yet there have been discussions during all of this in which you have said the cities need to do more in your estimation to help with this problem.
Yeah, obviously the drug epidemic is really hurting the counties because we're financially responsible for the jail. We're financially responsible for providing space for court systems. There's a lot of unfunded mandates that get passed down to the counties, like court-ordered legal psychological. I mean, there's $50,000 a year in our budget right now that we have to pay for individuals to get, I guess, counseling sessions. And so there's a lot of those things that we're mandated to do, that the KRSs say shall, that counties shall, that a lot of times that the cities, I think, feel like they're paying their share because of property taxes to the county. But in this situation now, we get about $2 million of those property taxes come from the city limits. I mean, I just told you a minute ago, our jail alone is 2.2. You know,
Lexington and Fayette County merged their governments in the early 1970s. You have mentioned that. You have, can I go so far as to say you have proposed that in Madison County?
I don't know if I've really ever proposed it. I have said things and comments in my State of the County addresses. I think that it's pretty well known that I would be open to that. Man, I want what's best for our community as a whole. I want to be a leader that looks into ways that we can be the best, that we have solutions. I see nothing wrong with for us to investigate whether or not a merged government is what is best, if it does save our taxpayers money, if it does put us or takes us to the next level.
You'd instantly be the third largest city in Kentucky if you did that. Would that in any way make the area more attractive to industry or businesses or so forth if you were able to have that distinction?
Absolutely. You know, I think we've got a lot of land that we can grow. I mean, our county has these urban corridors. Our county has 7 exits off I-75 in it. There is no other county that has more exits off of their county than we do. I think that is huge. I think we can get to 26 states in a 10-hour drive from our location. I-75, I-64. I think there's a lot of things that would attract us, and we could partner together, a lot of resources, and really be united and be one.
A few seconds left. The nerve agent is still stored at the Bluegrass Army Depot, 500 tons. They're trying to get rid of that now. Is that on schedule, you think?
It is. Right now they're talking about 2023 is when it'll be over. They're talking within the next year and a half that the plan will be starting. And so everybody's amping up and preparing for that to start.
Judge Reagan Taylor from Madison County, thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Stay with us now. We're back with human resources expert Brian Simmons talking about workplace issues. We can all relate. Coming up on Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. We spend a lot of our lives at work, and there are all sorts of evolving issues that our next guest keeps track of. Brian Simmons encourages companies to focus on training in a positive workplace. Simmons is a founder of 3 workforce-related businesses, a frequent speaker, or what he calls edutainer, on the workplace. He facilitates and provides professional coaching at conferences and workshops, and we're always glad to grab a minute of his time and get an update on what's going on out there. Good to see you.
It's good to be back, Bill. Thank you.
First of all, unemployment is historically low. Companies report they're having a lot of trouble recruiting an adequate pool of candidates right now. How tough is it?
It is quite tough. And as we know, the numbers are ranging anywhere from 2.2% all the way up to really 4.2% in the local Lexington area, in the suburbs of Lexington. But when you really get down to it, it really puts the onus on employers to now expand what they're looking at with the pool of people that are available to work. I've been working a lot with folks that have disabilities even, and we're still tending to overlook different ones in which we could expand our talent pool and our recruitment pool.
So maybe people out there who just have not been considered previously.
Most definitely. And then also we have to put the focus of the employer on retaining who they have.
Right.
One of the best ways to recruit talent is to look at what you already have and try to duplicate that as well. But it's tough out there, and everybody's going for the same applicants.
Right. What makes for a good retention policy, an environment where people want to stay?
Well, you have to focus on what I call progressive recognition. We have a progressive discipline policy, and we spend about 97% of our times focusing on the negative and the 3% that really are causing the issues within the organization rather than focusing on the positives. So we need to flip it. We need to spend the majority of our time focusing on progressive recognition and appreciating and respecting the things that people are doing within the organizations That's what helps to retain and engage employees.
And that's what you're telling companies to do.
Most definitely. Engagement increases your revenue, it increases customer satisfaction, all of those things.
You told me, though, that despite the tight workforce right now, applicants still need to bring their A game when they come in for interviews and the process of hiring.
Most definitely. I've seen it, people getting a little lax in the application process. The applicants still have to look and research companies, know what the essential functions of the roles are that they're applying for. I've seen some applications that have been embellished a little bit as far as the resume is concerned. So employers are still looking at those things that are required of applicants in order for them to be considered to be good candidates for the roles as well. So applicants have to take the responsibility to do their homework.
And do you advise them to be careful about their social media presence, that sort of thing?
Most definitely. I would advise them, anything they put on social media, just know that an employer has access to. Not that they will look at it, but it's out there.
You have also indicated that in some cases our laws and our policies are not keeping up with the times, that the workplace and the workforce, they're changing faster than the rules are.
Most definitely. You look at the basis of what we're working under, Fair Labor Standards Act, 1938, our laws against discrimination, 1963, 1964. We just came along with laws surrounding disabilities in 1993. So, but we've evolved, even with technology and how that plays into it. We talked about social media. What are the laws surrounding that? We now have the states where marijuana has been legalized. So what are the drug policy laws and the background screening laws? And we have been operating under a basis that's really antiquated, and we need to take a look at new processes, new initiatives, what I call reinventing the workforce.
Kentucky has such an issue with opioids, and it really, you think of it as there's an incarceration problem, there's a treatment problem, but you're telling me there is also a workplace problem for even people who are not perhaps directly involved.
Right. Because we have to play it all the way out. As I say, when we look into organizations, the opioid problem, let's have an example. Let's say it affects two parents, and then the children of those parents now have to be taken care of by the grandparents. And let's say the grandparents are still in the workforce. We still have 4 and sometimes 5 generations in the workforce. So now they have these societal stress issues of dealing with an opioid situation that's not theirs directly. They're not the person that's addicted, but how they have to care for the situation and all of the different things that it impacts or affects.
Maybe that grandparent who has been reliable for many, many years has to pick up kids in the afternoon.
That's right. And then all of a sudden at work there's an attendance issue or things like that.
How is this all working out with so many generations in the workforce? It can be very enriching, and I know you encourage people to do that and to take advantage of the various talents and perspectives, but It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. What we have to operate under is what I've been calling radical transparency. We have to respectfully discuss these things, ways in which we can help each other, because without that, we're missing the primary connection in order to have a relationship, and that's effective communication. If we're not effectively communicating with each other generation to generation, then we're going to miss something within organizations that's going to leave a lot on the table, and it's going to cause a lot of the issues that we're experiencing now, simply because we're miscommunicating.
And there are different values. Are some of the policies going to have to change because there are new perspectives about the way things, maybe younger folks in the workforce want more flexibility than the baby boomers who thought, you show up and you pull your 40+ hours and you go home.
That's it. And that's what we're really seeing has changed, and that causes a lot of the conflict in the workplace. A lot of people think that, hey, every employee should work just as hard as I do, just as long as I do, and do just as much as I do. And some people have a different perception of that, especially those that are coming into the workforce now with the perception that technology takes care of everything and we can be more efficient and get things done in fewer hours.
Workplace safety issues you address very often, I know, and those have many different facets.
They do, and one of the facets, Bill, that we're overlooking but we're seeing increasingly in workplace violence becomes threatening, bullying, and harassing behaviors in that way. Not so much harassment from the aspect of we've just been through a lot of issues with sexual harassment, other harassment issues, meaning that inappropriate behavior directed against people because of their differences. See, that's what makes up harassment. But now we see just threatening behaviors from supervisors towards employees and employee to employees. That's concerning. I had a situation where an employee was intoxicated on the job, and when law enforcement arrived, found out that she was in possession of a loaded handgun also in the workplace. So it's getting a little bit more tense around some of these issues concerning safety and security in the workplace.
About a minute left. You say, though, that some companies are doing it right and that there are some positives out there in the workforce.
There are definitely some positives. I have a lot of companies that have requested the supervisor and leadership training where we focus on the behaviors. Because, see, in the past we've been talking traditionally about our perceptions of things, but we really have to drive to the behaviors. What type of behaviors actually show good leadership, legacy leadership, supervisors that I call it. And there are definitely the companies that are getting it right.
Your website is bestedutainment.com. That means you make it entertaining.
Oh,
right?
yes. It's educational, it's engaging, and it's entertaining.
And very informative. We thank you very much for coming by. Brian Simmons.
Thank you,
HR
Bill.
expert. And thank you for joining us for this edition of WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. We'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning, and hope you make it a good week ahead.